ESPN Honolulu presents Call the Coach with University of Hawaii Rainbow Warrior basketball coach Eran Ganot. Brought to you in part by HGEA, IBEW Local 1186, by the Hawaii Building and Construction Trades Council, and Hawaii USA Federal Credit Union.
Good evening and welcome to our Monday edition of Call the Coach with Rainbow Warrior head coach Eran Ganot. I'm Bobby Curran, and we are here to talk Rainbow Warrior basketball. Ron, let me start off with this. First off, congratulations on a pair of huge wins this past weekend. What amazed me, among other things, was the nature of the final scores. One night you win 78-76, and then the next night it's 79-76. That had, first of all, had to drive Dan Munson crazy. Well, that's not your chief concern. Your chief concern was you didn't have to be driven crazy because you got the right result. But I want to talk about the two games because I thought they were very interesting.
Yeah, well, pumped for the wins, pumped for our guys, obviously coming off a tough loss. I think they bounced back well. Long Beach games, league play, this time of the year, they're very competitive battles. You said the scores were similar. The way the games played out were pretty similar, having to come from behind and then hauled off a late rally. So been on both sides of it, coached long enough, and just happy and pleased to come out with the victory. And I've seen a lot of positives. I think both games you can continue to see the flashes of what we can be individually and collectively. And if we can prolong that as strong periods and, limit those tough stretches we have, we can make another move as we head down the final stretch.
Well, as you have often said, this is a program that's based on process. You are a process coach. I think the whole staff is oriented that way. I'm wondering, you may make continued improvements, but I almost think for some of the new guys, they won't really make the leaps they want to make till they have a whole off-season, summer, total fall camp. I would think you must be really looking forward to that. Not to wish your life away, but I'm sure you're anxious for that to happen.
Well, you're always, as a coach, excited about the opportunities to teach and to work and to mentor. And we just, have had a limited experience with them thus far. And so I really think they've done a great job with the limited access we've had. We've had obviously more access recently, but not like you've said. And we're looking forward to that happening. Obviously, the sacrifices we've made now, maybe things start to get to normal, hopefully, where you have off-season and things like that. But we've challenged all our groups, especially this group, to be the most improved. And I think, as crazy as it sounds, playing 16 league games and 16 what seems like close games, I think has helped us. And I think different games present different situations. We had lost 2 or 3 games decided by 2 or 3 points, and then we've won, I think, the last 3 or 4. I remember talking about that with you, how that could help us if we continue to get in those situations. I think it has. 2 weeks ago, we hadn't seen zone for a long time, and then we've seen zone the last 4 games. We haven't seen that kind of press for like 6 weeks. And then, so there's some negatives about being exposed in some areas, but there are a lot of positives. We were better against the zone the second time around. I think we'll be better against the press moving forward.
I wanted to talk about, as long as you brought it up, I did want to talk about the press because it seems to me that this is somewhat fundamental. You almost can't, and this is something Von McClanahan will grow into. It's almost impossible to dribble against that press. That requires incredibly quick ball movement back and forth, then get a flasher to go vertical. There's a way to attack that, and he looked like he wasn't comfortable with how to go about it in that game.
Well, I'll say this, like man, press, you're playing with a lead, playing from behind, zone, all 5 have to be connected. So it always starts with the point of attack. We didn't do a very good job in terms of catch it in the positions we want. Obviously, number one, against the press, you do not want to catch it in the deep corner. You don't have an opportunity. Like we always talk about straight aheads, your middles, your back pass last option. You don't have a back pass when you catch it on the baseline. If you throw it to your back pass, you're out of bounds. So, and then if you're stuck, like if you get trapped in the half court, 3/4 court, the rest of your team has to be there for each other so we can attack off that. We didn't do a very good job with that. I think we had we had 2 turnovers with about 3.5, 4 minutes to go that took no time off the clock, allowed them to get to quick offense, and then we got a little tight. So, at the end of the day, we need to do a better job prepping them for those situations. We hadn't seen it in a while. We weren't in the right spots, but we did a good job today watching film and on the floor. So we'll be more prepared moving forward.
I imagine it's the kind of thing that when some of those guys see it on tape, they're like, "Oh my God, what was I thinking?" Because the way it was explained to me from the time I was in CYO, if you get in the corner, you're adding 2 defenders, the baseline and the sideline, in addition to the 2 guys who are in front of you. I mean, it is the worst of all possible places to be caught.
Yeah, and you have to be prepared wherever it is on the floor. Press is different than in the half court. They were obviously trapping ball screens in the half court. We did a good job keeping the ball alive, shortening passes and playing off our numbers. We didn't do a very good job in that stretch. It's as if the 2 quick turnovers changed the momentum, and then we were playing on our heels, and a lot of guys didn't get to their spots. So, when you watch the film, it's pretty exposed. You get exposed and you learn from it. And so I think it's collectively, like I said, we've done a really good job of it early in the year. And then for whatever reason, the way these games play out and playing back-to-back teams, the same teams, we had like 6 weeks where we hadn't seen zone at all. And then we had about 4 weeks where we haven't seen that press at all. And we don't simulate as much because we don't have a scout team. So the bottom line is I'm glad we came out of there with the win. And I think that will help us moving forward.
I was wondering, I just had a couple of words with John Montgomery just leaving the arena, and I could just sense that you guys, I'm sure, were breathing a sigh of relief, because that kind of performance against a press would drive a coach bonkers. I mean, berserk, because it's the kind of thing that you're like, do you guys forget already? But of course they forget, because it's been for them, it's been half a lifetime since they saw zone.
No, and we've tried to come back sporadically to some things, because you don't want to go like you always want to prepare and play every practice, someone with man, zone, press, different presses, just in the event that if you go too long without it. But I think sometimes just the simulation of it, the fact that they got back turnovers created some momentum. Like I said, I'm excited about the opportunities, but like our mentality is always like zone, bring it on, man, bring it on, press, let's go. And so I think that starts, and we were a little bit not in our right spots. When you're up like that, it all comes down to execution against the press, taking care of the ball, getting to the free throw line, executing offensive. We got to the free throw line. We didn't convert on the free throw line. And then we had a couple of shots. It was like a perfect storm. We missed, Kaz had an open 3. We'd take that 3. We had a couple shots around the rim, didn't go for us. But the biggest thing, though, when you turn it over and allow teams to score that quickly, that changed the complexion of the game. So, again, I'm glad we got some key stops late to separate.
I'm taking a look to see when we have to take. We got a couple of minutes, I think, before we can have to take a break. I wanted to get to this because the one thing, even when you guys go through one of your patented droughts, I mean, you could put
brutal.
You could put those in a bottle and sell them if anybody was interested in purchasing them, because they do seem to be a regular feature. Thankfully, when you come out of it, you tend to score in torrents. And when that started to happen, it happened in both games, where I think they had to be thinking, what is this? Who are these guys? They have awakened. And which is a beautiful thing for anybody that's rooting for green and white to think and to see. But it doesn't. You have to be thinking, okay, when is this going to end? Because we know we have to live through it. But my goodness, can it end now, please? Thank you.
I'm with you. I think we've consistently been a flashes and spots team. Now, I think our positives have been longer, and we've had less of some of the droughts, but they're still there. It's fun. We talked a lot about both ends, handling success, handling failure. We've compounded problems, to be honest, when we've struggled a little bit. We've turned a missed free throw, 1-and-1, a missed layup, a missed open shot to allow it to affect us defensively, and then we've taken bad shots. Whereas, look, we got to the line, that's great. We got to the rim, that's great. We got an open look, we didn't make it. Those are good situations, but we've compounded it. I think our guys press. I think they want to do well, and all of a sudden – it's limiting. It's making a 5-point deficit, keeping it that way, instead of all of a sudden it's a 12, 13-point deficit because of us compounding the problems. And we'll learn from that.
We want to encourage people. If you're watching us on the Facebook stream, you can call us, text us rather, and if you're on radio, just call. So here's a texter coming from Facebook. Aloha, Coach. Great sweep versus Long Beach State. What do you take away from the Long Beach games that you would take with you to the Big West tournament? Also, do you know your seed right now for the Big West tournament?
Good question. Every game is an opportunity to take some things away. Like continue to take away that we have a resilient group that will fight back. I continue to take away that we are a team that is evolving still. We just talked about a lot of that, obviously, limiting our droughts, our low points, and extending our strong points. But the biggest thing from the Long Beach game is like we took from Northridge, we got to be better against the zone, and we were. Long Beach had a different press. I think obviously it exposed some areas in terms of our crispness against the press. And so that's probably the biggest thing as we continue to evolve in other areas. We're in a good position, obviously. It's unique because of the way, in terms of the standings and the seedings, people haven't played the same amount of games. It's different than normal years. There's different criteria depending on how it plays out. Unfortunately, we can play these final two games. But we're in a position, I think, where our magic number is 1, where it means we win one game or any of these teams lose one game, and we're in, this top 6, and obviously potentially 5 and even 4 because we're playing a team, obviously, that we're right there battling with.
The nice part, Eran, is that you are, I think when they say, and when you have a couple of games, and so do your opponents remaining, the beauty of the magic number of being 1 is it's essentially in your destiny. You win Friday night, it's done. You're in the top 6. Or if you win Saturday night, it's in your hands essentially. So that feels good because you don't have to depend entirely on other people.
Yeah, and you know what? It's always been in our hands from the start, but certainly going into Long Beach this stretch, Long Beach was 4-4. We were 6-8. We had control of our destiny, and we came through and got the games done. Now you have, like, what we call it, the magic number. Right now, we're focused on obviously cleaning evolving, cleaning the things we need to clean up, having a great week, and then we'll take Davis one at a time in terms of our approach to them.
Let's get to Glenn from IAEA. Another text. Will you be recruiting to replace all 3 seniors regardless of whether any of the seniors return for another season? Good luck on the road and in the conference tournament. Go Bows.
No, great question. I think we're always prepared for all scenarios in this day and age, especially with these COVID rules and situations that affects your current team. We pretty much have a good plan A, plan B in all scenarios. And obviously, I think we have very clear idea of what we're identifying in terms of our needs. We've talked about that over the last couple of shows. So, and it's unique because as of now, as an update for everybody, and I think we talked about this last week, the dead period has been extended again till the end of May. So we'll be recruiting in creative ways, and hopefully things continue to get better, that we can maybe have a summer to recruit. But it would now be, if it continues obviously through the end of May, it'll be 13 or 14 months where we haven't even been allowed out.
We're going to take a quick time out, though. I do want to when we come back, I want to talk with you. You've gotten a great deal of honesty from at least one of your seniors, and I'm sure that you may not like the decision, or it may not work for the program immediately, but I know that you appreciate someone trying to keep you in the loop about how he's thinking. We're going to come right back with more. This is Call the Coach with Eran Ganot on ESPN Honolulu.
Sports fans, get to Rival Sports Lounge in the Waikiki Malia by Outrigger. Your sports action on DirecTV sports packages. The NBA is heating up with all the action on 12 4K screens. Enjoy local beer on tap and a big variety of liquor. Whack our famous wings and slice of Waikiki pizza. We follow state and CDC guidelines for your safety, which means less people, so there's more space for you and great service. Rival Sports Lounge in the Waikiki Malia by Outrigger.
Call the Coach on ESPN Honolulu.
Welcome back to this Monday edition of Call the Coach with Rainbow Warrior head coach Eran Ganot. For those that got this, the magic number being 1 is a very good place to be. And there was no way that could have happened without sweeping Long Beach State last weekend. So they were incredibly significant games. And I know the process here. It's not, we don't sit around and think about the future too much because you can forget about what's right in front of you. And I know that's primary. And now what's in front of you is 2 games against Davis. I was chatting up there with some people, and we are going to have Jim Less on our show on Wednesday. He's agreed to come on and talk about the pandemic because they've had as tough a time, I think, as anybody in terms of getting practices and games in. And I noticed that while they handled Cal Poly more easily on Friday night, they ended up in overtime on Saturday night. I just thought that was so typical of what can happen in this conference. And if you ever have a little letdown, you can find yourself, and I don't care who the opponent is, you can find yourself in trouble here.
Yeah, especially in the year. I mean, you see, I've talked to more coaches in our league and coaches in other leagues about, and you see the scores. We're all following the scores, the parity and the battles that can happen as the year progresses. The situations that each program's under is different. Older and mature teams always have an advantage, especially this year. But there's some younger teams that are getting more comfortable and getting games under their belts. You talk about Davis; it's a program that's obviously has won a couple championships. They play really hard. They play right. They play together. They had 2 young freshmen, including the freshman of the year and Ezra Mannion. Those guys are a year older and made significant jumps. They were picked to be, obviously, I think, in the top 3 coming into the year. Now they've had some games under their belt. They've won 5 in a row. Like I said, when you got especially Mannion at the most important position as point guard, Elijah Pepper is up to 15, 16 a game, shooting the ball really well, was recently player of the week. You got Squire back for them in the last couple of games. So they're coming in peaking at the right time and playing with a lot of momentum.
They have that Kennedy Kohler back and a couple of other players that I'm not as familiar with. So I fully expect, and I know you guys do, expect them to be formidable in their home court where they're comfortable, obviously. They're sleeping in their own bed. All those things that applied to you last week apply to them this week.
Yeah, again, 5 wins in a row. They're the momentum they have, the experience they have. We played 2 games with them last year, and 1 on 2, basically Eddie hits a shot and then Muta hits a shot to win 2 games. So there have been battles. We know they've won. They've been in multiple championship games over the last 5 or 6 years. So we expect it to be a great challenge, a great battle. And again, that's what we live for. That's what we want. And especially in the year, they've had 2 or 3 undefeated seasons at home over the last 5 years. So you're talking about competitive team, competitive program with a lot of momentum on their home court. I mean, what else could you want as a competitor?
Let me give this text to you. Coach, great season so far, even through all of the pandemic, but Saturday was senior night. We saw at home the messages for the players, but how weird was it for you to not have the normal senior night with the lays and the ceremonial dunk and all that good stuff? Good luck in the tournament and at Davis.
That's a great question. It's been strange, and I feel, and you hear me talk about it, and I'll say it again. I appreciate the collaborative effort of so many people, all you guys, to create as good a situation for our guys as they can. But we know it's not what it was, but it's honestly, I think people have tried everything to make it as good as we can have it for this team, for our seniors. We had, obviously their introductions, and then there was a video at the end. But I feel for some of these guys because no one does senior night like Hawai'i. We have one of the greatest fan bases ever. The Stan Sheriff Center is one of the great venues, and Rich's team has been unbelievable in terms of creating an environment, keeping us safe. But it's afterwards you look back, the video, the final shot they each get to have. Ziza's right with me, and she always gives the lay as well. I give him a ball, I give him a hug. She's always crying because she loves these guys, and she hasn't had enough interaction with these guys. So it's not, I miss those days a lot because, like I said, no one does it like Hawai'i. But I will say this, it's a sacrifice we have to make, and people are doing the best job they can to make our guys feel special given the circumstances.
We got a caller now on the line. We have Shane. Hi, Shane. How are you? You're on with the coach.
Congratulations on the 2 wins. One observation I had, I was really happy to see McClanahan come into his own offensively, especially in the second half of Friday night's game. It just shows. I just saw so much confidence in him in his shot, and something that we haven't seen too much previously. But I'm just wondering your thoughts on his game offensively. And in my opinion, I think we're so dangerous. When he's aggressive offensively, and I know a big one of the big problems, I guess, was the offensive droughts that we go through. But with McClanahan and even Coleman coming along offensively in spurts this past series, I think we got a lot to look forward to.
I appreciate it. I'm pleased with Javon's progress. I think his ability to stay aggressive and be shot ready was better this past week. He's done a really good job taking care of the ball. But we've talked about all our guys being threats, and then different guys. I think we've had 9 different guys score double figures, and we're playing our depth. Beyond has had some flashes recently in some games in terms of getting on the glass, and he's got a bright future. But Javon is a guy who we know what he's capable of, and hopefully it spurs something moving forward. But when you have guys like Kazan and Webster shooting at such a high level, and then James and Mate, and then Junior, and Noel is like Noel and Bawali. So you have different guys. We're tough covered. Everybody's got to be prepped. And now, this past week it was good to see the confidence in Hemsley and Javon. Noel's has been coming on. Like Noel and Bawali are shooting close to 40% or about 40% from three.
Yeah.
Their first year with our program. And Noel is the guy who doesn't say boo or speak much. So he's kind of the most under the radar. No one ever talks about him. Like, I should get more questions about him because he's had 3 double-digit scoring games and has shot it really well in the last 4 or 5 games. He's really been coming on. And the fact that we can go 3-guard lineup, be big with Beion and Junior, just continue to mix and match has helped all of them. And like you said, with Javon, it's nice to see because now he's getting some of those shots and he's converting. And it might be someone else the next night.
Yeah. I guess my next question is, with Biwali being a freshman, Noel and McClanahan sophomores, I'm got to figure out a way to get all these guys on the court at the same time. I mean, we got such a bright future.
No, that's a good problem. And we've played some 3-guard lineups, and we've played them together at times. And it creates a different kind of challenge. Obviously, every game dictates different situations, but they play so hard. And when you rotate them a lot, they can continue to play with great energy. And then you see how they support each other on the bench. So I'm just glad to see those guys have all had flashes.
Shane, good questions. Thank you for the call. And Eran, I wanted to get to this because I think we tend to take the guys that were here last year a little bit for granted. But one of the things I'm noticing about Justin Webster's game is he is less inclined, I think, than ever before to settle for jump shots and to take it incredibly hard to the rack. And he's good at it. He's got good body control. It's amazing in such difficult circumstances how often he's able to finish that. You must be pleased with that.
Well, I think he's reading the defense. The game's slowing down for him. And, we talked about at his position, it's a process. So first he was kind of letting it rip, which is a good thing. I like his aggressiveness. Now teams are scouting. He's moved up to scout, and he's ready to shoot the 3. And if it's not there, he's ready to attack the rim. And that's checking a box. And eventually the next thing is attacking the rim and reading if it's a score or make a play for a teammate. And I think he's going to continue to just check boxes. He's shooting, it's funny to see these guys over their careers and see their progress. He's shooting 50, 42 from 3, rarely turns the ball over. He's shooting 60% from 2. I think he was 40 or low 40s from 2 last year. That 60% is incredible. And again, shooting 50 and 40 at the 2-guard position is a real sign of improvement, and it's a credit to his work.
And there are others too whose games I can just see really blossoming. I think Biwali has gotten considerably better. He was a little bit, in my estimation, and I don't see him in practice every day the way you do, but I thought we'd see in games him be sometimes a little out of control. He'd be doing one of these spins. I'm like, where are you going with that? I mean, because there was sometimes he was all dressed up with no place to go. I'm finding that he's seeming to develop better control of that as the season's worn on.
Yeah, and I said he and Javon are 2-to-1 assist to ratio first years in our program and without a non-conference. So it's always fighting a balance. Like each of these guys have great personalities, individual personalities. You got to find the balance between not losing their personality and being under control. And I think, like, I love Bawali's aggressiveness. He's fearless. You don't want to lose that. You just want to continue to find the balance between him being aggressive, making the right reads. And I think over the course of the year, and as a guy who's played 20 minutes a game and now 16 Division I games under his belt, you can see that coming along. Does he make mistakes here and there? We all do. But I'd rather have to deal with that than have to rev a guy up. We will never have to rev Bawali up, ever.
One of the things that's remarkable, when you mentioned fearless, I mean, Isaiah Washington from Long Beach is a very slick New York City type ball handler. He's very quick and aggressive. It didn't matter when Bawali came into the game. He would go right back and get, in the backcourt, 20 feet, 30 feet into the backcourt, and get right on the guy. I mean, there's not a lot of people that would do that. Most people think, I better give this guy a little room because he's really quick. No quarter from Bawali.
Well, then they brought a back screen in there to get him off him because Bawali's just a gnat. I mean, he's incredible at make or miss. His first reaction is to pick up full court, and it's relentless. And, sometimes he'll get hit on it, but over the course of the game, I feel like he thinks, and we do, that he wears guys down, especially when we can rotate different guys there, and we can. But it's a great gift and a great quality. But these guys are good. We got some good point guards, and I know this much: good defenders, they sometimes will give up some points, and guys will make some tough shots on them. But the great defenders want to come right back and guard that matchup again, and he has that.
Got another text. This is from Tom from Kailua. Hi, Coach. I got to know this. For this past series against Long Beach, would you have liked fans in there, or would you rather not have had any fans so your players can hear you? Congrats on the season so far. Go Bows.
That's a great question. I'd always love the fans in there, and especially with the way the games, I think, it's crazy. They'll be able to hear us. Good teams, good coaches, teams that are connected. It's amazing. I've always said this to our team. It's amazing. You can play in front of 10, 20,000, and you can still pinpoint your teammates' voice and your coaches' voices. It's just something about that. Those are, and even with that, like, you're not even, but I do know this. Can you imagine the stand over some of these games this week? It would have been rocking. So I would always take our awesome fan base being there, and I'm looking forward to that day when that happens again.
We're getting just past 6:30, which means we have to take a quick timeout. So rev up your questions and comments and calls if you like. Go ahead. We'll do that and take this timeout. Right back with Eran Ganot. This is called The Coach on ESPN Honolulu.
Well, what you doing now?
I do my own PV system, and I get homie fall-proof gear.
Ano, T-bubble wrap and duct tape going work.
Yeah, I get them. Check this out.
Okay. You okay?
I think that heat expanding stuff is true. Getting small kind of hot in here.
Oh, no.
It's raining over here. How we pop all the stuff?
Hey, poco.
Oh, careful.
Make sure to have an electrical contractor and licensed electrician do your photovoltaic installations and electrical work.
IBEW Local 1186, lighting your path to the future.
Call the Coach on ESPN Honolulu.
Welcome back to Call the Coach with Rainbow Warrior head coach Eran Ganot. We appreciate everybody has been with us today, and the questions and calls have been fairly insightful today. You have to be thrilled, I think, with the development of this team, considering the many challenges. There rarely is a game that goes by when you don't see measurable improvement in certain areas, and some of them are tough areas.
Yeah, no, I think going into this week, we wanted to be better against the zone. We checked the box. We wanted to get back on out rebounding opponents and winning the 50-50 balls, and we did both. It's interesting because at the same time, we got to maintain where we've been good, and we got to put it all together. We got to get more consistent defensively. We talked about the tough stretches. We're going to maximize the limited practices we have. I feel like the guys have all had, now with Javon and Hems, confidence coming back a little bit. I just feel like it could come together. I know we'll be better already this week at attacking the press, and So I just, like I said, being in those games and there's nothing like games for these guys right now. And we've now played 8 straight weeks, no bye, and hopefully we get to play this week. But I think it will only help us, and has.
You know, there are certain guys, and I thought you ran into one of them last week in Chance Hunter. There's some guys that are so good that, I mean, and so big that he's a handful. It's if he really gets going, it's hard to stop him. What I think all you can try to do is get him to catch the ball in spots he doesn't want to make him move in a direction he doesn't want to, and then hope for the best. Because if he's on fire, he's flat going to score. And I'm bringing this up because I think you got a couple of those kinds of guys on Davis. I think Mannion and Pepper in particular are those kinds of guys that you almost are reduced sort of to making them go in a direction they don't want to. You know, I mean, it's the little things sometimes that makes a guy slightly uncomfortable.
Yeah, and that's where we can't have lapses. They can't get hot in transition. Those kind of players, to be honest, we've seen it. Every team's got every position, different guys, but you have to make them work. You have to make them shoot a tough percentage. You can't let them get to the line. You can't let them get to their sweet spots. We're pretty good on scouting and tendencies. You know, Long Beach went small. They played Chance at the 4. And then he got to his left hand and he got in the post and he's a lapse killer in transition. And you know the deal. When those guys get a free throw, and maybe they're struggling, but they get one lapse 3 or one lapse free throw, a layup. Now the tough shots start to go in for them. So you just said it, Mannion. The good thing is Mannion's tough. We've seen him before. We've seen a lot of quick guards. He might be as quick as any though. Elijah Pepper right now is playing. You're shooting 45% from 3 and having a 30-point game. The guys are playing with a lot of confidence, but I think our guys are up for the challenge, and we know it starts with the point of attack, the one-on-one defense, but we have to help each other as well.
I wanted to ask you this. I'm sure that coaches, I think, have to vote on this, but who would be, with the guys you've seen, I know you haven't seen Davis yet, but you've seen everybody else, who do you think are the front runners right now for the player of the year in the conference?
You know, it's a good question. You still got 2 games to go. We played Santa Barbara, and Santa Barbara's still in the front. You know, I tend to look first at the team that's winning the league, and if there's a clear-cut guy. I think when we talked about Santa Barbara, McLaughlin was shooting 50, 40, 80, 5 assists, 5 rebounds. I mean, I don't know. I haven't looked since they played us. You know, once we're done playing them,
you're done with them, literally. Yeah.
I revisit that after the year, but right now that would be kind of because I know they're still in first, and I imagine he didn't have too much of a drop off, but that's a guy. You know, Irvine's up there. Welp, you know, is coming off a Player of the Week. So it's body of work, how they finish. You know, but I know when we played Santa Barbara, I thought my initial thought was the current Player of the Year is McLaughlin.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm exactly with you on that. I think Velp he's a very good offensive player, but he's such a weak defensive player that it sort of detracts from it. And I know, like Gary Dickman has always said, no, it's got to be Amadou Sow. And I said, frankly, I think So's a really wonderful player, but he hasn't had that kind of a year this year, in my estimation.
Well, I think you look again. It's the kind of year. The magnitude. I mean, up until we played them, McLaughlin was doing what we said offensively, running the team, making the big plays, both ends of the court, settles his team down. I think the combination of those things, and that's not a discredit to any of the other guys. It just means that guy's just playing at a higher level.
Yeah, I sort of see that also. But I also kind of think that what can happen in a tournament is that everybody is so well scouted at this point. You really find out which guys can sustain this thing when the pressure is on. Because tournament formats, 3 nights in a row, it'll be more than that, 4 and 5 for some teams. But I think it really reveals, it sort of reveals character in a way.
No, and that's what like I said, these, as you get towards, you know, you usually go non-conference play, and conference play, every game has so much significance. Second time around, more significance. Down the stretch, you feel like you're already in kind of that. I know it's March 1st, but you can start to feel the urgency, you know, and that's a great thing. It's a great, and I'm proud of our guys for fighting through to get to play these games. That, as you know, the more success you have, the more these games matter, which is great.
No question about that one. Let's get to this text from Scott. Does being in the Big West Conference give you any hardships while recruiting players? Is there also an aspect of exposure when it comes to recruiting too?
That's a good question. I think it's all about the advantages, pros and cons. I think it's a very underrated conference. I think, we won in the NCAA tournament, then Irvine won in the NCAA tournament. So there are some programs that have come on. I think we lost Fox Sports recently. We had some more national television games. So we, as a league, and all our teams, and as a league, we need to continue to fight for exposure. I think there's some really good coaches in our league. And I think it's a league that kind of has some young talent that gets developed later. You've seen some of the guys over the years that are now. Gabe Vincent's playing in the NBA. Dave Nwaba was at Cal Poly. And I think there's guys who could get that done. So, and then we've had transfers recently that have burst onto the scene with a year in our league. So, I'm hoping that both the programs and the league as in general take some steps to fight to get us that exposure that we need again.
Okay, we have a caller on the line right now. Paul, you're on with Coach Ganot.
Hi, Bobby. Thanks for taking my call. Hi, Coach. How you doing? Really exciting. Good. Thank you. Really exciting 2 games. I don't need to tell you over the weekend. We just, I'm the type, when I'm watching something, I'm on the couch and that's it. I was standing up, man. So God bless these guys. My question is, with the tournament coming, there's really no audience. And I just want to know real quick, I think our chances are great. And how do you instill the fact that there's no audience, there's no real home court with these guys? Because they're terrific. With the amount of guys we have, I think we have a great chance. And I think just to have everyone just playing without a crowd with their home crowd is good. And I'll listen off the air. Thank you so much. Thank you.
No, I appreciate the question. I think we've built a little bit of immunity, and now there's a little bit more of a comfort. 16 D1, 18 overall games now playing, without the fan base. Going into the year, I knew it would be different, and we needed to go through it to see it up close. But it's something that our teams, and I know Bobby, we're very not out of control, but we're very loud and energetic on the floor and on the benches. So I thought that would work in our advantage. And early, you forget we had still new faces that, weren't used to that a little bit. But you can see recently, and I know you could tell, those guys, we got awesome guys, we got some crazy guys, and that's a great thing. And, some venues have done a good job trying to simulate some fan noise, but I think the reality is that I love the energy from our benches and the guys on the floor. That's created the best that we can do given the situation, and the combination of that with the fact that we've now played in 18 games or so without like a normal situation with fans. So we're getting more accustomed to it, and our guys are loud.
I'm not sure that fans can see this. Of course, I have a great vantage point of it. Sometimes I'm looking and thinking, there's 6 guys on the court, because Von McClanahan can't help it. He is, when he's not in the game, he's coming out to, cheer guys and give them a little support or an energy or a comment. I'm thinking that guy, I thought Biwali does have unbelievable energy, but McClanahan's not far behind him.
Well, it's contagious. That's how it works. And it's a great thing. I think we talked last week. You see Zor and Bernardo, they don't even sit in their chairs. They're sitting in the corners, ready to just jump onto the court and go crazy. And that's what kind of been a hallmark of our programs. The guys who play, the bench gives them life. And when the guys who play come out, they switch roles. And, our support staff, all those guys, they're just energetic and genuine. And that's a good thing if a ref tells me, hey, you got to calm down your bench. We've gotten a lot of those over the years. I hope we get more. I hope we don't go over the line, but I hope we get more of those.
I can't even imagine what this group will be like if they're down the stretch in a game in the tournament that's right on it, because I think they've been sort of brought to this point. They are tempered by fire. I don't worry about them losing track of what they're supposed to be doing, because they've been there before.
Yeah, as much as you could be upset. We've been in more close games than any other team in our league, and maybe there may not be many in the country. We've won 7 of 11. 2 of the losses were in overtime. We've won 4 straight games, I think, in games decided by 2 or 3, where we lost a couple during a stretch, but that's helped us moving forward. It's thrown these guys into the fire. There might be more experience amongst this group in terms of those situations compared to other teams. So, I know our fans are excited about the game. They're not healthy for us. But at the end of the day, it's awesome for us, and I think it's helped us to this point. I hope it'll help us move forward.
Let's get a text. It's from Mike from Kailua. Hi, Coach. We're all excited about the tournament, but there's still Davis. They're 5-3 in conference, not nearly playing as many games as you. Do you feel like your number of games played gives you an advantage over this team that has only played 8 games in conference?
That's a great question, and I love this question because the caller also reminded it's Davis first. He gets it, and it is Davis first. Well, it's us first in practice, then we talk about Davis, and then we'll figure out the rest. That's later. But, it's interesting. I think we talked last week. There's some teams that have had interruptions internally that's causing mispractice in the game. There's some teams that have had interruptions exterior, so like a team they were playing, so they've had more practice time maybe. We've had a unique situation. We're now going into 9 weeks, 18 straight games. I wish we could have had more practices, but I do think at the end of the day, I love, especially without having a non-conference, I love the fact that we've had games. Nothing could simulate situations like games. We've been very careful and smart to try to keep these guys safe and healthy with only 11 and try to simulate some things the best we can because of that. But it's interesting. They've, like I said, at the end of the day, we know Davis is a really good opponent who's coming in with a lot of momentum.
I just want to mention, I particularly have enjoyed the matchups against Davis because I think that, I have a ton of respect for Jim Less and that staff. I think that you guys are somewhat similar. I think that in terms of your approach, because you can tell he is a process-oriented coach. And I think when you guys get together, there's a slight element of the chess match on, and there's also been fabulous competitions. They've been absolutely down to the wire most times.
Yeah, and like I said, they're a championship program over the years. They've been right there, and they play really hard. They play together. They've had staff continuity. They got good kids. I think there's definitely great respect there, and that's why you look forward to those challenges, and it's going to be a competitive battle. And like I said, you're playing against a team you've had a competitive battle history with that's coming in with a lot of momentum. It's a great challenge for us.
I want to save this question because it's still going. It's still being put up. I could get most of it, but we're going to answer this one right out of the box when we come back. It's Call the Coach with Eran Ganot, and we'll be right back on ESPN Honolulu.
If our leaders cut vital city and state services, you can expect longer waits when you call 911. Fewer lifeguards watching our beaches. Fewer custodians sanitizing our airports. Fewer inspectors making sure our food is safe. Longer delays before kids go back to school. A longer road to recovery. That's what happens if we cut vital city and state services.
A message from HGEA.
Call the Coach on ESPN Honolulu.
Welcome back to our Monday edition of Call the Coach with Eran Ganot. Team is departing on Wednesday to go up to Sacramento and then over to Davis to get to play against the Aggies. And I think it's been a particularly interesting deal because they have played fewer games, I think, than anybody in the conference at this point. They also are in the most restrictive county in California. Yolo County has been nightmarish almost to deal with. Obviously, they feel they're doing what they have to do, but it's not been easy. I kind of think that with this team, that's just whatever it is, it is. I don't think they're all used to it now. Nobody gets too distressed about those things. They just do what they do, and it's pretty much the same routine for you guys basically every trip, no?
Yeah, look, Davis every program's been through something. They've had consistent practices. They had some games they couldn't play earlier, but now they've played. And obviously, like I said, they played 5 in a row. No, our guys are used to a routine. We had to adjust the routine to put our guys in the best position and keep them safe when we went to 11. And they've done a good job handling that. So the process, here and the process we're on the road. And like I said, now we have a little bit of routine. as you add in the protocols and the testing. And so we have a pretty effective schedule to put us in the best position.
Okay, now here's our question from John. He's from Honolulu. Coach, first I want to say that you guys are doing a good job despite having players opt out, injured, all that. What I want to know is that you guys are going to Vegas, but without fans. Do you feel like you still have home court advantage since it's in Vegas, even without the fans?
You know what I'll probably say to this. We feel like we have an advantage regardless. We'll find the advantage, and you can feel the Hawaii fans there in spirit. You can feel a lot of Hawaii fans that will be there locally, maybe not in the facility. And so, again, and we talked earlier about the energy our team will bring. So we're just excited for that. Obviously, we got to focus on finishing this week strong and traveling well and getting better against, and obviously getting ready for Davis games. And then we'll focus on traveling to Vegas, obviously, the following day. So we're just looking forward to finishing strong and continuing to make some strides.
One of the things I wanted to get to, because this is one change from previous years, because you're playing back to back as opposed to having the day off, and it's a different opponent typically. I'm wondering how you handle, how you dole out rest periods, how much, because it's the same team that you're playing, how much do you tweak for the next night? I would think that would have to be on a limited basis because you only have the day of the game practice, and usually you try to limit that to somewhere in the neighborhood of an hour. So is it limited to just a couple of points of emphasis that, hey, let's worry about this tonight?
Yeah, no, it's pretty, it's kind of like, okay, you guys get a nice meal, get to bed, let us grind till the wee hours of the night and get you ready tomorrow. That's kind of the routine. And I remember saying that over the years, like their job after the game is to
eat and rest.
We don't play. Like we get our guys prepped. And, I think over, 6 of the last 6 games, we've won 4 of them on the second night. The 2 we lost was in overtime and had a chance to win those. So I think it's worked for us. And, over the recent weeks, we've, played 10 guys. And I think, the other night, Long Beach had 3 guys playing 35 minutes. We didn't have anybody playing over 30. So, and I thought over the course of the game, it worked in our favor. It's just the way we finished the game in a mental aspect didn't not the way we wanted. But I feel like we have a good rhythm. It was earlier trying to really feel it out to understand that there's a mental and physical fatigue that can play in there. But I think we have a good rhythm right now with that.
We have a texter, James. This is James on Facebook. He says, Coach, would you ever consider playing James Jean Marie and Mate at the same time?
That was kind of a bit of a mentality. A lot changed when Bernardo's situation happened. And then, they've been effective kind of playing off each other at the 5. We know we snuck him in there in the first Long Beach game. We played James at the 4 when they were playing, Joe Hampton at the 4, and they were playing a little bigger. So, I think we just haven't had, again, when you lose Bernardo, when you lose some of the practices, it's almost like they have to constantly go against each other in practice, if that makes sense. We try to find some ways to get them, and obviously it'd be James, ready for James playing the 4, but in different ways because, we just don't have the numbers. But just to continue to be ready, because that's something we can go to, just like we went to Kaz at the 5 during a stretch during one game. And, sometimes playing Hemsley the other night, who's been at the 4, we played him at the 3, and maybe Beyond moving around. So all things are in play.
One thing that seems obvious about this team is pretty much every guy seems to have that, what do you need, Coach? Wherever you need them, that's where they're going. I don't never see anybody giving the kind of the shrug like, oh, man, really? I mean, I don't see that. I just see everybody saying, okay, whatever you need, here it is.
Yeah, and we need that, especially, period, always, but certainly in the situation we're in. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say enough about Zor. I mean, Zor plays 1 through 5 in practices for us, and he jumps in whatever he needs. He's the greatest teammate ever. He's made a huge difference in our program without getting on the floor, but I wouldn't be surprised. And I know if he's on there, he'd do well for us. I'm just really appreciative. Like I know we're talking about all these guys. He's kind of the under the radar guy too, like Noel in some sense, but I don't know if there are many better teammates than Zor, and he's made a difference for us in practice, which has helped us in these games.
Well, and it wouldn't shock me if circumstances one of these days, it just comes up that you have to call his number. But I don't have any doubt he'll answer the bell if that happens.
Yeah, I remember we did that at Fullerton last year, and he helped us win the game. And I think he's better than he was last year. He's stronger. It just played out that way. And I would feel pretty good with him on the floor, and I feel great with him every day. I think he's one of the great teammates, to be honest, I've ever coached.
We have something that's coming up, and again, I want to say I appreciate everybody. I think that we've had particularly good questions tonight that have been asked of the coach. Hi, Coach. What's your take on UC Davis? They only played 8 games, but they're ahead of you in the standings. Are you upset with that at all?
Yeah, I'm obviously not happy about. I'm glad we're doing a pretty good job recently, but you certainly wish you had. Look, we were 1-4 to start. That we put ourselves behind the 8 ball a little bit, and I appreciate the group fighting back like they have to go 7-4 since. But we control. We get to play Davis, and we'll see how it plays out. And it's just interesting the way the standings have worked this year. We played 18 games, they played 8. Or I think 8. So we played 16 in the league, obviously, and they played 8. So it's a unique season. The league made decisions on how they're going to look at standings and seedings based on that. And obviously different leagues do different things. But once the decision's made, we're just focused on what we can control. And like I said, looking forward to a great battle this weekend.
The one thing that for those who constantly watch the standings and are trying to gauge who's going to play who, give it up. I think right now it's impossible to pick that. I mean, which is good in a way because it saves anybody from looking ahead. Right now, you got Davis in front of you, and now that's enough.
Yeah, I know they send in these scenarios. There's like 700 scenarios, and I know when I was younger, and now you're coaching now 18th year, and you've been around it longer. Sometimes they're very simple scenarios. You're looking at your team, one other team. But right now, because of the way this thing's played out and the variables in play, I look at the sheet and I'm like, I can't keep up with this. Let's just make sure we have good practice.
I think that's the answer. We are just about out of time, Coach. There's only a handful of seconds left. You have a couple of days. Just give me 2 things that you're prioritizing for the next couple of days of practice.
Well, pretty clearly today was obviously getting them mentally and physically ready for this final stretch. But it was, number one, attacking this film and attacking this press. Because I think we've done a pretty good job against zone recently. So number one, our press attacking, being in the right spots against traps, half court or in the press. And then number 2, getting back our defensive rotations, being in the right spots there. I think our effort's been good, but we've missed some rotations, and good teams will exploit that.
Coach, excellent stuff. Thanks so much for being with us tonight, and have a great practice tomorrow.
Always great to be on. Thanks for having me.
Eran Ganot, for all of us at ESPN Honolulu, I'm Bobby Curran. Aloha.
This has been Call the Coach on ESPN Honolulu. Brought to you by HGEA, IBEW Local 1186, by the Hawaii Building and Construction Trades Council, and Hawaii USA Federal Credit Union.